the tables I have to my right here, I have all my dimension tables like the channel, calendar, city, manager, product category, subcategory, promotion. Also, I have my sales table, which is my fact table, right? And if I go to the model view here, you will see how all the dimension tables connect to the fact table as per one-to-many relationship, right? Now, there's something interesting here that I want to do. I want to create calculated columns, right? And I'm also going to be creating measures using the related and the related table, right? Now, I'm also going to show you how you can use calculate with that, how you can use your iterators like your MINX, your MAXX, also with related table in this scenario now. Now, don't forget that this table is a dimension table. Now, what I want to do is that for every city here that I have in my city table, I want to calculate the total sales, my total sales for each of the city in this city table, right? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click on new column. There are different ways to do this, and I'm going to show you. So I can click on new column like this. And when I click on new column, I'm going to call this column total, or let me just call it city sales. Yeah, let me call it city sales, right? And I'm just going to say sum X, right? It means that I want it to iterate over all the rows in the sales table, right? And give me a final aggregate for each of the cities, right? Now, I'm going to say sum X, and I'm going to say related table, right? That related table is sales, right? Don't forget that the reason why I can call in sales here is because there is a relationship between the sales table and the city table. That is why I can say related table sales, right? Now, what is my expression? My expression, right, is for it to sum, right, the units selling price, which I'm using as the expression for my sales, right? And I close the bracket. Now, a little issue might occur here. Now, the answer I'm getting here is not actually correct because this has not transitioned to the correct filter context that is meant to. And that powerful function that will do that for me here is the calculate function. So I'm going to put calculate in front of this and just say calculate, right? And I'm going to, close the bracket one more time. Then I press enter. Now it has now transitioned to, the filter context that it's going to transition to because I put calculate in front of it. Interesting. Now I'm going to show us another example. Now I'm going to use calculate because I am spelling out my expression, the sum, open bracket, unit selling price in the sales table, right? Which stands for what the column I'm referencing for my sales, my sales measure, right? Or my sales expression, sorry. Now, what I'm going to do now is to do a second example, and I'll say new column again, right? When I say new column, I'm going to call it one city sales 2, because it's another example. City sales 2 equals to, and I'm going to say what? I'm going to just say the same sum X, right? And I'm going to say related table this time around again, related table, and I'm going to call in sales, right? And I'm going to just say what? My total sales measure. So you can either spell it out, write out the expression, or you just call in the measure. If you already have the measure there, fine, right? Total sales, I close my brackets, and you'll see that I'm going to get the same result. Is that not interesting? So this is total sales by each city. So it has transitioned from row context now to filter context, to the proper filter context. Because why? Because now this sum X has gone to the sales table, right? And everywhere it's seeing this city key, because that's the connecting key between the city table and the sales table. It has gone to all of the rows, and anywhere it sees this particular city key, for example, this city key 1, is going to sum up all the unit selling price together and return the answer here, right? So that is the power of related table in this context. Now you see that related table sales, then the measure. For the one that I did not have the measure, I'm assuming I don't have the measure. What I need to do is to put the calculate in front of my expression, which is the sum open bracket sales unit selling price, so that it can transition it to the proper filter context. So just to do a recap, it has moved from row context now to what? Filter context. Interesting. Now I'm going to do something else. I'm going to say new column again. This time around, I want to calculate the minimum sales, right, and the maximum sales per city, right? So I'm just going to call this one main city sales, right? Main city sales, and I'm going to say equals to, and I'm going to say MINX, right? That's another iterator. And also say related table, right? I told you that this related table works on what? The one side of the relationship, which is city table, is an example, dimension table, right? I'm going to say sales, close my brackets, right? And this time around, what do I want to do, right? The minimum MINX related table, right? And I'm going to call in my what? I can call in my total sales here, and I close brackets, and I press enter, right? Now this has given me what? The minimum sales per each city, right? The minimum sales per what? Each city. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to calculate my maximum city sales, right? I'll say new column again, new column, and I'm going to call it max city sales, and I will say equals to max X now this time around, right? Related table, right? Sales, right? A close, right? And I'm going to say total sales. Now I'm going to explain the logic behind this calculation so that you understand. So let's say city key 1 appeared 3 times in the sales table. And for each transaction 1, 1 row, you see $5, transaction 2, $10, transaction 3, $3. It's going to return for me $3 here because all the transactions, right, that occurred in city key 1 in Aba City, right, is going to iterate over the sales table. And everywhere it says city key 1, which represents Aba, right, what it's going to do is that it's going to give me the minimum sales, right, the minimum sales amount, right, in that city based on iterating over the entire sales table, right? So that is the logic behind the MAXX city sales. Now, let me also do something very interesting. I'm also going to create a new column again. And in this new column here, what I want to do now is to calculate probably the average, right? Probably the average sales amount, right? And I'm going to say average city sales this time around. I'll say equals what? It's going to be equals average X. Oh my, I didn't get the spelling right. Okay, average X, right? Related table sales, right? Related table sales. I close the brackets, and now I'm going to be having my total sales here, right? And I press enter. So this will give me the average sales for this city key, right? And the different cities that we have here. So the logic behind this is this. For every time that each city key occur in the sales table, right, it's going to sum up whatever they have, right? And it's going to divide them by the number of occurrence of that city key in the sales table. So that is what the average city sales is actually doing for you here. So you see that I'm using my iterator with the related table and also my measure. Interesting, right? Now let's do another interesting thing. Here, what I want to do now is to see the first date of purchase in these different cities, the recent purchase dates, right, in each city, and the date before the recent purchase dates. Sounds interesting, right? Let's dive to my screen. So now I click on new column again, right? And what I want to do now is this. I want to get my what's it called? First purchase dates. First purchase dates. That is the first date of transaction for the different cities that I have here, right? So I'm going to say MINX. I'm still going to use the same MINX now, right? I'm going to use MINX, and I'm going to say related table, just like I usually do, right? Related table sales, right? And I'm going to call out the sales order dates, the order dates in the sales table, right? So it's going to iterate over the sales table and give me the minimum dates, the minimum order dates for each different cities that I have here in my city table, right? And I press enter, right? What do you see? This is the first date of purchase, right? This is the first date that a transaction happened in these different cities that I have here, right? So look at it, 9/12/2013, 5/12/2013. So 2013 is like the year the transaction started, right? So I can come here now and change this to short dates. So I don't have date and time together. What I'm going to see is date and time by default. Now, new column again, I also want to calculate the last purchase dates, the last purchase dates, right? And I'm going to say equals to, right? And this will be MAXX now this time around. This will be MAXX, right? And I'm going to say related table, just like I usually do. Oh, something is not right here. Let me go back. It's going to be related table, right? Sales. So you see that I'm using related table a lot because I'm relating, because there's a relationship between the two tables, right? So I'm relating it. I want to transition into the proper filter context. That's the reason for using that related. So you to understand exactly what I want to do, right? And my expression is what? Sales order dates. Here's my order dates. I close my brackets and I press enter. And this is going to give me what? This is going to give me the last date of store. This is the last, let me just call it the recent date, the most recent date of transaction, right? In my sales table for these different cities in my what? City table. Now, let me do something very, very, a little bit tricky. Don't let me call it very tricky. Let me say a little bit tricky here. So what I want to do now is to calculate the date before the last purchase date. That is, somebody bought something yesterday, and the date they bought last before that yesterday was 2 weeks ago. So we want to know the exact date so that we can calculate the difference in days between the last date of purchase and also the date before that date, right? So the last purchase date before the recent purchase date, something like that, right? So now what we are going to do now, create a new column again. We are creating a new column again. We are still going to be using the MAXX, right? So I'll just call that dates before last purchase, right? Equals to what? I'm going to say MAXX, right? And I'm going to use related table again, right? And I'm going to say sales. Now, the interesting part here is that because of the condition that I want to write here, because the condition that I wanted to filter the sales table by is when the last purchase date is lower, right, or is less than the other dates that we have in the sales table, right? So give me a date, give me a maximum date. Give me a maximum date that is lesser than my last date of purchase, right? So you should give me the maximum date, but lesser. That means it's going to give me the last purchase date before the recent one, right? So let's dive into that. So what I'm going to do now is to use a filter. I'm going to use a filter in this scenario. I will need a filter. And my table, my filter intelligence is telling me that for filter, I will need a table and I will need a filter expression. And for the filter, I'm bringing in the related table, which is sales, right? And after bringing in the sales, what will be my expression? My expression that is that it should give me the maximum date when the last purchase date is lesser than the other dates that I have in my sales table, right? I close the brackets, then I will say sales order date. I know you might be wondering that why do I need this sales order date again? Since I've already written my expression to say that give me the maximum date when the last purchase date is less than the order date in the sales table, right? So if I don't put this last expression there, this sales order date, what will happen here is that the MAXX will not understand exactly what I want to do. I'm doing MAXX, that is the maximum order date that I have in my sales table, right? That is lesser than the last date of purchase, right? That is my expression in my filter. So I want it to iterate over all the rows that I have in my sales table, and I want it to filter at the same time. It's going to filter the sales table to give me the date before the last purchase date, right? So now I can press enter here, right? And I'm probably going to see my answer. I don't know why that is not coming up. I don't know why that is not coming up. Oh, or is it meant to be when the sales order date is lesser? Let me change that and see. Let me change that and see. and it should be sales order date is lesser than the last purchase date. Oh, so I made a mistake there. Then I press enter, then let's see. Oh, sorry guys, I made a mistake there. So it's meant to be when the order dates, right, in the sales table is lesser than the last date of purchase. So let's take a look at this now. This city rather, the last date of purchase in this city was 17/11/2016. Before the date of transaction, before that date is 30th of October. This is November, this is October 2016. The same year, but a month before, right? So now we can now use this to calculate the difference in days between the last date of purchase and the date before that last date of purchase, right? So we're not going to call it date difference, right? You can now say we are using the function date if, and my first date will be that's the date before the last purchase, comma, and the last purchase dates, right? And the interval that I want is day, and I close and I press enter, right? Now you're going to see that it is 18 days difference between the last day of purchase, the recent date of purchase, and the date before that recent date of purchase. So this is the date if will allow me to calculate the difference in the two dates. So I can use that to track that, okay, the last time a transaction happened in this city was this date, and the previous one before that one was this date, and we've had 18 days in different, and that is you can use that to track your metric and say that is not actually good. 18 days is a lot. Why 18 days in between? Why 18 days interval in between the days that people are making transactions, in that city? So you can use that to answer, look deeper and answer the questions, what is going on, what is happening, right? So look at the other ones now. This is a day difference. This is still very, very good. A day difference. 16 days is not too good, right? 7 days, 3 days. 3 days is still fair. 7 days is not also good. So, look at this one. This one is even very, very bad. 44 days. That is the difference between the last purchase date and the date before that date. I mean, so you can be using this to track, business metrics to tell the business that, oh, something is not right about our business that is in this city. The last date of purchase and the last date before that day is 44 days, difference, and that is not good, right? Now, we've talked about related table a lot. Now, before I go into related, let me show you something interesting. You know that when I wanted to calculate city sales, remember what I did, right? I showed you 2 examples here. Do you know that I might not even need to do all of this, go through all of this stress. Yeah, I'm going to show you 2 other ways I can do it. I click on new column, and I'll just simply, because of the relationship between the 2 tables, so see how interesting this is. I'm going to say city sales 3 equals to, I will just call my total sales measure. I'm telling you. And I'm going to press enter, and you will see that it will return back the same answer. I don't need to write all that long expression. I don't need to do that at all, right? And it's going to return for me the same result. Is that not interesting? Very, very interesting. So another method that I also want to show us is this. How you can see how powerful your calculator is when I click on new column here. I'm just going to simply say city sales 4 again, right? And I'm going to say, and I'm just say sum, right, of my unit selling price, right? And I close brackets. I know that when I do this, I know that it's going to give me the same result for all the rows, all the cities. And to just change it to the proper filter context, so I'm just going to put a calculate in front of it here. Calculate. I'm going to close brackets one more time, and I have the same result. So you see that these are just different ways of doing the same thing, right? The same total sales by city, I want you to transform to the proper filter context. But now what I'm doing simply is that I'm just using different methods. The first method, what I did was to, use my sum X and related table and calculate and sum. For the second one, sum X related table. For the third one, I just called out total sales. That is the measure I already have for my total sales. I just called that out. It gave me the same thing, right? Without having to write the long expression. And this one even made it another easy method. Just calculate sum, because calculate will help you transform it right into the profit context. So that is that. Now, you know that all of these things, all of these measures that I use there, you can, all of these columns that I created, you know that you can still write them as a measure, right? So, when you talk about optimizing your Power BI reports, you are not meant to be creating calculated columns. No. Unless there's a need for it to happen. Unless there's a need for it, you don't need to create calculated columns like this. You can actually put in, all of these expressions as a measure, not as a calculated column. And let's test that. So this same my city sales, I can just come here, copy it like this, right? And I can come to my what's it called? My report canvas here. And I'm going to go to my DAX and I'll click on new measure. This is where I'm keeping all my DAX measures. And I'm going to come here and I'm just going to call it sales by city. Sales by city. And I'll say equals to, and I'm going to just put in the same thing that I have here, right? And I'm going to commit it, right? And I'll just drop it in this my matrix table. And you see that I have the same results. So it is advisable that when you want to write this kind of calculations, right? Instead of creating column, why not just write it as a measure? So you can have all the measures so that you don't generate you don't put too much energy on your Power BI compute engine, right? So you just write them out as a measure, right? So that is that, right? Okay, so now let's go and let's look at related now. We've talked about related table a lot. Let me take you through related now. For related, I'm going to go to my sales table. I'm going to go to my sales table, right? And I'm going to go to my table view here. And what I want to do is to probably return an attribute using the primary key and the foreign key of that dimension, right? So what am I going to do here now? I'm going to say new column. I'm going to say new column. And I'm going to, what I want to achieve is this. Before I even do related, let me first talk to you about lookup, right? Now, I'm going to, let's say I want to return the city name. So I just say city name. City name equals to what? City name equals to, let me use the lookup value. Lookup value. And what do I want to return? I want to return my city name, which is city from the city table. This is my sales table, don't forget, right? And what is the connecting keys between that I can use to connect them? It is the city key in my city table and the city key in my sales table. Interesting. I close the brackets here and I press enter. Then it's going to return the city name for that particular city key. Is that not interesting? Now, this is the interesting part. Lookup value can work whether there's a relationship between city and sales table or there is no relationship between them, right? Now, let me go and disconnect that relationship between city and sales and see whether the expression is going to break. So I come here, I delete the relationship, I click on delete yes, right? And I'm going to go back to my table view. Did anything happen here? Nothing happened. Now let me go and return it back here. Let me go and return city to city key, city to city key, city key. I want to menu relationship. Now, I'm not going to do something now. I'm going to go back here. Now, let me go and use related now. Let's see what happens. I'll click on new column. I'll click on new column. And I'll just simply say city name 2, right? The second example. And I'll just say related, right? And I'll call city, right? And I press enter. and it returns the same result for me. But the issue here is this: if there is no relationship between CT table and sales table, it's going to break this expression. Let's see that now. I'll go to my model view here, and I'm going to come back here again and delete this relationship. And I say yes, delete. Now, if I go back, oh, you see, I've not even gone back, and you see that it's already giving me an error because there is no relationship between sales and the CT table. So that is the interesting thing here. So that means that for related to work in this context, there must be a relationship between the CT table and the sales table, right? You see that if I return the relationship now, come here, and I return it here, then CT key, I press save, then what you will see is that there will not be any error again when I go back to my sales table. So guys, this is all I have for you today for related table and related. Please don't forget to share and like this video and subscribe to this channel, to watch more tips on Power BI, Excel, and DAX. Thank you so much. God bless you.